Raider Nation, what is going on, man? It's your boy Sanjit here, back at it with another video. Today, we are talking Raiders football. What a freaking win by the Raiders. And I know a lot of people are going to talk about the fact that we should have probably blown this team out. Totally understandable. But sometimes these are the types of games that really get an offense going, really gets a defense going, and allows a team to come back. Remember, the first time the Chiefs beat the Raiders sparked something for them. I think they were 3-5 at that point, and they haven't lost since. And they're, I believe, 10-5 or 10-4 at this point. First and foremost, huge shout out to all you guys that are already here. I really appreciate it, man. If you guys could hit that thumbs up button, I would really, really appreciate that. Big shout out to all of you guys here already. Over 50 of you guys are already here. A lot of you guys, I'm already seeing your guys' comments. I'm already getting some super chats. And we're going to get into every single one of these questions and comments. Super chats are always the way to go if you want to be 100% featured on the channel. I will try to go through any of these comments that I kind of see as I'm scanning them on the side here. But shout out to all of you guys, man, for being here. If you guys can hit that thumbs up button, it really does mean a lot. Let's go. Let's get into this, man. Let's get into this. One of the things that I'm already seeing on my Twitter is the fact the Raiders should have potentially beat this team easier, right? It was too tough of a game for the Raiders. The Raiders kind of got lucky, and that's what I'm hearing. Well, I'm here to tell you guys this. A win is a win at the end of the day. As the Browns were down some players, I believe it was 8 starters. It's not like these aren't players that they didn't know coming in, right? They knew these guys were not going to play. The Raiders, on the other hand, also had some players out, right? Darren Waller was out. Denzel Perryman was out. Trayvon Mullen was out. Both of our guards are out. Our head coach is out. Our wide receiver, or our best wide receiver coming into the year, is out. So it's not like, our team isn't banged up either. At the end of the day, this was a great team win, in my opinion. And we're going to get into Derek Carr because, Derek Carr still had a not so good game, and we're going to get into that. We're going to discuss it. We're going to break it down. We got a couple of super chats. Let's get to the super chats. Shout out to Cool Zay 1995 with the first super chat of the day, always supporting the channel. Huge shout out to you. Let's go. Both DCs love Raiders. Absolutely, man. Derek Carr got it done when it mattered. And you know what's crazy is I kind of put a tweet out about this. In any other situation, if Derek Carr throws an interception and there's 2 minutes and 30 seconds left, the Raiders are not getting the ball back. And most of the time, they're not getting the ball back. And today, the Raiders defense stepped up and got the ball back, and Derek Carr delivered. Now, we're going to discuss the entire situation. 20 first downs by the Raiders, 13 by the Browns. But more than that, like, the time of possession was huge. The Raiders were able to drive downfield and actually convert some third downs. 6 of 13 on third downs, a little bit less than 50%. But when you think about that, right, the Raiders were like 1 of 9, 2 of 10 on third downs the last 6 weeks prior to this game here. And in this game, the Raiders were 6 of 13. So that's definitely a step up. Some people are also talking about Brandon Parker, and we're going to get into that in just a little bit later on. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. A Nintendo Not $5 super chat. Thank you for the support. Said, despite the win, is this still an L, barely squeaking out a third string Browns team? How bad are we actually? That's such a good point, because this is exactly what everybody's saying on Twitter. And I will say this, a win is a win at the end of the day. And I would even make the argument that the defense for the Raiders has been spectacular. I believe 5 times this year we've allowed less than 20 points. I don't know if we allowed less than 20 points at all last year. I believe the Browns was the only game we allowed less than 20 points. But our defense has stepped up tremendously. It's really just the offense that's struggling. And let's face it, right? The offense still had its struggles today. 16 points, you lose 9 out of 10 games. The Raiders do have to continue to score more points. What's crazy is the Raiders started off hot. First possession of the game, we drove downfield, and we scored a touchdown. And after that, it's like we just kicked a bunch of field goals, and that's not going to cut it, right? I know that, and you guys know that. And I will say that it does kind of feel like a loss in that aspect that the Raiders barely got by, as you say, against third-string players. Now, it was only 8 players that and they weren't third-string players. They were pretty much backups. But I get what you're saying, right? I was a third-string quarterback. If Baker Mayfield plays this game, I think the Raiders potentially lose this game because, not that Baker Mayfield is a great quarterback or a superstar quarterback, But there are situations that Baker Mayfield would not have put that team in. He would have managed the game better. But the Raiders still played pretty good, right? Even the box score. You look at someone like Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb had 23 carries for 91 yards. Of his 91 yards, he picked up about 40 on 2 carries. So really, he had 51 yards on his other 21 carries, which, if you really think about it, that's a pretty bad game for Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's a really good running back. And a lot of his carries came on like 2 or 3 carries, or a lot of his yards came on 2 or 3 carries. The Raiders defense stepped up. 3.7 yards per attempt is what the Browns had. 89 total rushing yards is what the Browns had. 89. Think about that. The Browns are a run first team, and they weren't able to establish the run. The Raiders got it done. The Raiders were able to step up. So you got to give a huge shout out to the defense. Even then, you got to give a huge out to some of these players. Max Crosby, Denzel Perryman, although I know Perryman didn't play, those 2 guys are in the Pro Bowl, as is our kicker. And I believe both kicker and punter are in the Pro Bowl as well. Don't quote me on that, but the Raiders pulled it together, man. And that's all you can look at. I appreciate the super chat. Huge shout out to you for that. I got a couple other super chats. Let's just get into those really quickly. And then I kind of want to go over some of the statistics and some of the things that I saw watching this game. Byron Live, thank you. You said, hey, bro, I just want to let you know you're the best here on YouTube. Big shout out to you, man. If you guys are not subscribed to Byron Live, go check his YouTube out. You guys see it right there. There's his name. He does a great job creating content. I believe he has 6,500 subscribers already, or around that. So definitely give him a follow on YouTube. Thank you for the comment, man. I really appreciate that. Rogue here says, accept this W. Totally agree, man. You got a win is a win. Right now, I want you guys to think about this. The Raiders are 7-7 right now. And let's say we win next week and a couple of teams lose. The Raiders are literally in the playoffs. I believe we got the Denver Broncos next week. That's a winnable game. The Denver Broncos are not that good, and they may be without Teddy Bridgewater. Although, I don't think there's a big difference between Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. They might be potentially without their quarterback. So, going into next week, if the Raiders can pull that off, at 8-7, you're potentially in the playoffs. Some of the teams in front of us, we've beaten them. The Ravens, the Steelers, among some other teams, the Browns at this point. We've beaten these teams. So, if it came down to the tiebreaker, we've beaten these teams. We would make it over some of these teams. Nintendo Nut said, I also want to say that Renfro is the best player on this team. Watch the film on that fumble he recovered. He knew it was coming. Crazy awareness. It's crazy because he was standing there waiting for the fumble, which is very interesting. That Hunter Renfro, and it's a huge heads-up play by Renfro. And Renfro does this so many times. To say he's the best player on this team, you can make the argument. Like, Hunter Renfro is a really good football player. And I made an argument on social media just the other day. People talk about Hunter Renfro and the fact that he's a slot wide receiver. I believe if Hunter Renfro played on the outside, as a full-time outside wide receiver, he'd be just as good, right? Hunter Renfro is not slot specific, and that's the only reason he's a good football player. Hunter Renfro can play anywhere, and he's going to be a good football player. His football awareness, his IQ, the ability for him to be able to recover that fumble, in which he did, those are the types of things that separate Hunter Renfro from the next guy, right? Hunter Renfro has crazy awareness, and I appreciate the super chat. You're spot on, and I totally agree with it. Mr. Nate Duncan said, people going to bash DC for missing checkdowns this week. Anyway, Peyton Barber is a stud. Just win, baby. Raiders. Shout out to you for the super chat. Let's discuss this a little bit. There were a couple of plays that Derek Carr kind of missed. He took a deep shot to Deshaun Jackson. Some people said it was a pass interference. Other people said it wasn't. And Hunter Renfro got open late. But I will actually back Derek Carr up in this situation. And you guys know I don't often back up Derek Carr. But I will in this situation. On that play that he threw it deep to Deshaun Jackson and Hunter Renfro ended up slipping open. Derek Carr is not, and it's not just Derek Carr, but quarterbacks don't read the field, left, right, and then come back left and then go back right. It doesn't work like that. The NFL is too quick of a game. You're going to start left, come back right, and then you're going to either hit the guy to the right or you're going to check him down. And for Derek Carr to, quote unquote, miss Hunter Renfro, I don't necessarily blame him because he went through his natural progression. At the same time, think about this. Would you guys rather have Derek Carr look for the check down or be aggressive to throw the deep shot? because I would rather have Derek Carr throw the deep shot. I know it's 3rd and 3 and Derek Carr throws it deep. I know it's incomplete, and we punt the football, but I'd rather have Derek Carr be aggressive. My biggest issue with him is he's not aggressive enough. And in this game, he was much more aggressive. Although we only scored 16 points, I think the offense looked much better. It looked more thorough. It looked more of a well-oiled machine. The running backs were actually doing good, in my opinion. Josh Jacobs, 15 carries for 52 yards. I really feel like he had a ton of good runs. I believe 2 runs of his that went for about 8 to 10 yards each. Ended up coming back on holding calls. I almost feel like Josh Jacobs had a much better game than the statistics show. He also had 3 catches for 42 yards, right? So you can't underestimate the fact that he had 42 yards through the air. 42 plus 52, I believe, is 94 yards. That's pretty good from Josh Jacobs, right? 94 yards, I'll take it. Zay Jones had himself a great game, and as did Peyton Barber, as Mr. Nate Duncan says. I think the Raiders need to look at Peyton Barber a little bit more often. Like, he's been pretty consistent for the Raiders. I believe he was here with us last year, and he was pretty good as well. And obviously, we replaced him with Kenny and Drake, and then obviously we brought him back. But Peyton Barber did look good today. Anyways, I appreciate the super chat. Thank you. Kevin Lurker says happy for the win. They played well. Absolutely. Mr. Nate Duncan also said, if you've been following the Raiders for the past decade or so, you'd understand how good this defense is compared to the previous. Love your videos. I really appreciate that. And that's the thing, man, is, and you guys tell me in the comments below right now, is this defense better than what it's been over the past decade, over the past 10 years? I would say the last good defense we had was that time where we had like Nnamdi Asomugha, Kirk Morrison, Thomas Howard, I believe Richard Seymour and Tommy Kelly. Right, those years, I feel like maybe 1 or 2 years we had like a top 5 defense. And I don't even know how long ago that was, but that was probably the best defense we've had in the last 15 years. Outside of that, like 2016, our defense wasn't that good, but they forced a lot of turnovers. Today, the Raiders were, let's face it, the Raiders didn't force any turnovers, but we're consistent in terms of getting off the field. We're getting after the quarterback. We're pressuring the quarterback, and we're shutting the run down. And I think, the Browns are a run-first team, and if you can take the run away, it really impacts that team. Nick Mullins had 147 yards. That's very, very, very poor, in my opinion. Although Derek Carr wasn't that much better. Derek Carr had 236 yards. But you got to give a big shout out, man. Derek Carr did have a fumble. He did have an interception. You can almost make the argument that Derek Carr almost lost the Raiders this game. But the defense really stepped up. And, at the end of the day, it kind of takes a collective effort at times to win ball games. You look at the Washington football team game. I believe Washington scored about 17 points. You look at the Giants game. I believe the Raiders had the ball, and we were able to potentially drive downfield towards the end of the game and score, and the offense wasn't able to. But the defense did a pretty good job in some of those games. Either way, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Do you think the offensive line played better than last week? Absolutely. Let me tell you guys the statistics really quickly. The Cleveland Browns had 2 sacks and 3 quarterback hits. So, last week, the Chiefs had, I believe, 11 quarterback hits and 4 sacks. So, just right off of those statistics alone, you can tell that the offensive line played good. But even just the eye test, right? If you guys just watched the game, you guys know Derek Carr had all day to throw it in today's game. Even then, Derek Carr did a much better job stepping up in the pocket, making passes, getting out of the pocket when he needed to, extending plays. Derek Carr did a much better job today. So you got to give a shout out to Derek Carr for that. The offense line definitely did much better. So thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Yeah, what else is interesting that people don't really talk about? On the defense side of the ball, we weren't that great in generating pressure, right? You would think that the Raiders have been able to do a better job, but I really feel like it was the coverage that did a great job. Bryden Faison in the first half did a fantastic job. Jonathan Abram was all over the field, especially in the first half. He did get hurt, and he was kind of holding his shoulder, it looked like, and I really hope that's not a season-ending injury for Jonathan Abram. Truth be told, if it is, I'd be super, super, super hurt over that because I think Jonathan Abram, at least in my opinion, might be one of the most important players for the defense. He fires guys up. Not a lot of players on our team make impactful plays. 2nd and 9, Nick Chubb gets the ball. Jonathan Abram tackles him for a 7-yard loss, I believe, on the first or second drive of the game. You're now looking at 3rd and 16. Those are impactful plays. 3rd and 8, and they throw it, and Abram makes the tackle for less than the first yard, right? He wraps the guy up, and it's not a first down. Those are impactful plays, and I almost feel like Jonathan Abram is the one guy that's making these type of plays. And occasionally, Yannick Ngakoue and Max Crosby will also make these plays. Big shout out to everybody on the defense side of the ball, man. Big shout out. Coleman Atkins said, Sanjit, please give us a direct answer. Do you think this is DC's last year as a Raider? I do not think this is Derek Carr's last year as a Raider, specifically because he's still under contract, or at least he still has 1 year left on his contract. Now, do I think the Raiders are going to stick with Derek Carr in 2, 3, 4, 5 years? I don't think so. In fact, I think the Raiders in the next year or two, I honestly think this offseason, the Raiders, there's a good chance they're going to look forward to their future. Now, I will also say this. If Derek Carr, these next 3 games, if he tears it up, plays lights out, gets us into the playoffs, wins 1 or 2 playoff games, he's our future quarterback, right? And that's all it kind of takes for a quarterback at times, is to give a little bit of hope. But you can also make the argument that Derek Carr pretty much lost us this game. 16 points is not enough. There's no excuses for that at the end of the day. Jesus said, did Abram break his wrist? I don't know if that's what it was. I haven't seen anything on it. If you guys have, let me know in the comments below right now. It did look like he was either holding his shoulder, or it could have been his wrist. So we'll obviously find out real soon what that was, what Abram's injury was. Cruise Control said, I like your positivity about the playoffs, but we played horrible. Can't play like that against other remaining teams. And I totally agree. I will say this, though, right? Like, sometimes it does, like having games like this where the defense wins us the game, sometimes it gets things going. Like the defense played lights out today. And what if next week against the Broncos, they do the same thing, right? What if the defense shuts down the Broncos next week and the Broncos, let's just say, score only 15 points and the offense is able to put up 21, right? At that point, the defense is now winning us football games. I know the offense still has not played great. The offense is not putting up 25 to 40 points, right? Maybe 25 to 35 points. That's what good NFL teams put up nowadays, and the Raiders aren't doing that yet. Even then, like Derek Carr threw an interception. 14 to 13, we need a touchdown. He throws an interception. And I'm surprised that the Raiders defense got the ball back with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left, 2 timeouts. If the Browns pick up 1 first down, the game is over, right? Or the Raiders would basically get the ball back with a very, very little amount of time left. But again, we're still in the playoff hunt. Things could always, turn around. And I'll say it, man. I've said this in the past too. I think the Raiders would be better off going forward with Marcus Mariota. And there was a time in today's game that Marcus almost came in, right? Derek Carr looked hurt. He fumbled the football. He looked hurt, and Marcus could have potentially came in. I would still say this, right? Scoring 16 points isn't good enough, and I do want to see the coaching staff still make that shift from Derek to Marcus. I think today's game also kind of proved that, playing against a team that has 8 starters out, you kind of have to think like you would want your offense to score more than 16 points. And I know not all 8 of those players were on the defense side of the ball, but their starting defensive end was out. Their starting defensive tackle was out. I believe their starting linebacker was out, and I believe one of their safeties was out as well, although they got John Johnson, the better of their 2 safeties, back. Either way, like the offense side of the ball needs to continue to play better. Before we move forward, if you guys can hit that thumbs up button, man, I would really appreciate it. It really does help this video. Other people can then see this video. And if this is your first time on this channel, make sure to subscribe. We talk all things Raiders on this channel. We do film breakdowns, film studies, all that good stuff. We talk about all the Raiders and all that good stuff. So thumbs up, subscribe if you guys are not subscribed. Johnny, thank you for the $10 donation. I really appreciate it. You said, thank you for these live recaps. You are my favorite Raiders YouTube. Have a Merry Christmas, Sanjit. Merry Christmas to you as well. And happy holidays to anybody out there that does not celebrate Christmas. I really appreciate these comments because these are the type of comments that I do live videos for, right? It's why I do these recaps. So shout out to you. I really appreciate it. On another note, one of the things that I think, especially in today's game, was evident in the first half was Bryan Edwards needs to get more involved, man. You guys see that touchdown that he had? Those are the types of plays that I almost feel like, Bryan Edwards could be really good at, right, is those back shoulder throws. Gave him those 50-50 balls. A good friend of mine mentioned recently something that I had not really noticed, and it was the fact that Justin Herbert throws these 50-50 balls to Mike Williams, and Mike Williams brings those passes down. And I actually saw him do one, right? I watched the Chiefs and Chargers game, and I saw Justin Herbert throw a 50-50 ball to Mike Williams, and he jumped up and he brought it down. Well, for the first time this season, I saw Derek Carr throw a 50-50 ball to Bryan Edwards, and Bryan Edwards brought it down. And I'm not saying Bryan Edwards would bring every single one of them down, but if Bryan Edwards got like 3 or 4 50-50 balls, like the way Derek Carr threw when it came to that touchdown, I think Bryan Edwards comes down with more of those type of catches. And I want to see the Raiders get Bryan Edwards the ball more. Now, he had a terrible fumble, right? Fumble, we ended up losing a bunch of yards. In fact, I think he picked up like 6 yards, and the fumble pushed him back from the point where he would have been tackled like 20 yards backwards, which is terrible in my opinion. But thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. We got another Johnny Perez here, $5 super chat. You said the 16 defense was better than this year's because we had players like Mac and Reggie Nelson then could close games for us. This defense is bad situationally. I do tend to agree with that in that sense that we did force more turnovers in that year. I believe we're top 5 in turnovers. In fact, I think we're the 5th best team in turnovers. You can have the 20th best defense in terms of points per game, but situationally, when it matters, you have to get stops. And I will say that the Raiders have kind of been pretty good in situational things, right? Like, we're not necessarily closing games out because the Browns literally drove all the way downfield and kicked the field goal. But when it mattered, when the Raiders offense threw an interception and they needed the ball back, the Raiders defense stepped up. Specifically, Max Crosby made 2 big plays. I believe Cleveland Farrell or maybe it was Diablo. One of these guys stepped up and made another big play, right? Those are the types of plays that we need. And again, I think the 16 defense was potentially better, but you can also make the argument that if the offense plays better this year, right, than what it's played, if the offense plays like the way they played in 2016, because let's face it, the 2016 offense was like 10 times better than the offense we've seen in the past 6 weeks. If we got the offense from the 2016 offense, we got that Derek Carr, those weapons, that offensive line, we're winning 13 games this year, right? Because that is how much better the defense has been, right? 5 times we've held teams less than 20 points. If you look at the points per game statistic, literally the Chiefs scored like 90 points on us, and that's really what skewed the entire statistic of the Raiders in terms of points per game. 5 times less than 20 points per game. It's definitely interesting. But I do appreciate the super chat. Thank you for that. I see a lot of your guys' comments, and I really appreciate them. One of the things that I do is I'll go back and I'll watch this video, and I'll read through the comments, and I'll see what you guys are responding to. So, I can kind of get a feel for some of the comments and stuff like that. I believe it's Machiavelli said, it's important to remember that although the O-line played better, there was no Clowney or Garrett, so they did better against backups. Myles Garrett did play, but he did get hurt at some point. But you're right. There was no Jadeveon Clowney, and their starting defensive tackle was also out. And then I believe Tack McKinley, who was with the Raiders, I think last year or the year before, he also got hurt, right? I believe sometime in the 3rd quarter. So I do agree that although the O-line did play better, you can make the argument it was against at least 2 backups, right? A backup defensive tackle and a backup defensive end. But either way, they still had Myles Garrett. Most people, or a lot of people, I should say, look at Myles Garrett as one of the top 2 or 3 best defensive players in the entire league, not just on the defensive line, not just as a defensive end, in the entire defense, right? Defensive players. They look at Myles Garrett as one of the top 2 or 3 guys. And the Raiders pretty much shut him down. Like, I don't even know if Myles Garrett registered a hit or a sack. Just looking at the statistic, he did not. He did not have a sack. He did not have a quarterback hit. Got to give a big shout out to Colt Miller and Brandon Parker. And I want to see how many times Colt Miller lined up against him and how many times Brandon Parker lined up against him. But it was a great job by the Raiders offensive line. Andre James did a really nice job at times, although there was a fumble snap between him and Derek Carr, which I put on Derek Carr because it hit Derek Carr in his hands. But he also had some, miscommunication where he wasn't snapping the ball. Derek Carr was calling for it. Andre James wasn't able to snap it. Now, I don't know if it was just loud in the stadium or what it was, but either way, man, you can't have those type of things. Old man's Raider Nation said Raiders defense finally stepped up in the fourth. Absolutely, man. And it's not even just in the fourth necessarily, right? Like the Raiders defense this entire game was pretty good. 14 points, man. Like how many times have the Raiders allowed 14 points on the defense side of the ball? So it's definitely interesting, and I'm definitely excited for what this defense was able to do. You got to give a big shout out to Divine Diablo as well. You know, Divine Diablo got the start today. In fact, Corey Littleton was healthy and did not start. And obviously, the Raiders realized that coming into this game, this is going to be a run heavy team. So the Raiders played a lot of base defense. Divine Diablo started, and KJ Wright started as well. So those are the two guys that started. And Markel Lee played more than Corey Littleton as well, although I think Markel Lee kind of played that strong side linebacker. Very interesting that they went with those three guys and they kept Corey Littleton out. And there was a time where Divine Diablo actually got hurt. I believe it was a screen play. He got banged up, and he came out for about 5 to 6 snaps, and the Browns ended up scoring. That was the drive in which Nick Chubb had his 24-yard run, and then he had his 4 or 5 yard touchdown as well. Corey Littleton was in the game, and Divine Diablo was out. Corey Littleton also got mossed, right? David Njoku also caught that pass right on top of Corey Littleton for a touchdown. 1 foot ended up stepping out of bounds. But those are the types of players and things that could either allow the Raiders to be legit or not. Divine Diablo has been doing a great job for the Raiders, man. I'm going to make a film breakdown this week of Diablo's. Maybe I'll focus in on just how he plays like downhill specifically. But he comes up and he hits offensive linemen, which is crazy because he's a safety. You don't expect, or he's a former safety. You don't expect those guys to come downhill and hit offensive linemen. And this guy was not scared, man. He was coming downhill and he was hitting people. And I don't know if that was part of why he kind of got hurt. Maybe his body's not used to it because let's be honest. If you're a safety at a college coming into the NFL and you're playing linebacker, it's going to take you 1 to 2 off seasons to get bigger, stronger, and be ready to come in and be that full-time linebacker. Denzel Perryman's great between the tackles, but he struggles in coverage. He struggles outside the tackles. And Divine Diablo is the opposite. He's great in coverage, great outside of the tackles. But at least coming in, we didn't think, or at least I didn't think he was going to be great in between the tackles. But Diablo has been really, really good. So you got to give a big shout out to Divine Diablo, rookie. And, he has a little bit of leadership qualities in him. And for me, I love those guys that are leaders. One of the reasons why I'm so high on Jonathan Abram, and I love Jonathan Abram's game so much, it's not just the fact that he makes impactful plays at certain times in the game, plays that change a game, right? Jonathan Abrams does those type of things. But another reason why I love him as a player so much is his leadership. He pumps players up. He yells at players. He gets guys going. He talks shit, and he tells offensive linemen that, I'm going to knock you out on the next play. Those are the types of things that other guys get amped up for. Those are the types of things that players want to play for. And if Jonathan Abrams is able to do it and Divine Diablo potentially comes in here and he's also able to do it, as a linebacker especially, that's what you need. You need talkers. You need guys to yell and scream and call people out. And Diablo's already done that, right? Diablo already called out the team, right? He talked a little bit about how people aren't coming to practice and wanting to play. Kevin Lurker said, Diablo's my favorite leader. I talked about this just yesterday. Is Derek Carr a leader? And I want to know what you guys think about that. Let me know in the comments below. Is Derek Carr a leader? And do people step up for Derek Carr? I would almost say no, he's not. And I don't know if people necessarily step up for Derek Carr. But I don't know if Derek Carr is that vocal leader. And that too, it's one thing to scream and yell at guys and try getting guys fired up. It's another thing for people to look at you and be ready, right? Cleo Mack's a great example. Cleo Mack was not a vocal leader, but Mack was on the field. He would say something, people would listen because he delivered. He closed out games, fumbles, sacks, and people looked at that and it fired them up. Does Carr have that ability? I don't know, but let's see what some of you guys have to say. Gabriel says he is too passive. Some people are saying Carr is a leader, just not the strongest on the team. Other people are saying Carr is absolutely a leader. Some people are issues is saying I don't feel that Carr's a leader. Men, either way, regardless of how you play, or what you think about Derek Carr and if he's a leader or not. The fact that we're questioning it, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, man, regardless, the Raiders definitely got lucky today, but they still stepped up on the defense side of the ball. Guys showed up, guys played well. Pasine Cunningham, and I apologize if I said your first name wrong, left the $10 super chat. You said Brady showed how condensing an offense to between the hashes without any real outside threat negatively affects an offense like us. Do you agree that not many quarterbacks, including Carr, can make Zay look good? I disagree with this. I saw this on social media trending earlier. And I don't know why Raider fans do this. Let's just get into this conversation. And I want to know what you guys think in the comments about this. People look at Tom Brady yesterday, the fact that he scored 0 points against, a top 2 or 3 defense. It might be the number 1 defense, to be honest, with the New Orleans Saints. But people look at the Tom Brady situation, the fact that he scored 0 points yesterday, and say that, basically Derek Carr has no weapons, and Derek Carr does this week in and week out. And Tom Brady, for the first time, goes into a game, he has no weapons, he struggles. And this is the thing, right? Going into that game, Tom Brady, the game plan was that Tom Brady was going to get Mike Evans and Chris Godwin the ball, right? That was the game plan coming into the game. Those 2 guys got knocked out during the game, right? It's not like they came into the game and that's what happened, right? Those guys came into the game with those 2 guys healthy. Those guys get knocked out in the game. That's much different than if it wasn't in the game, right? Like, for example, going into next week, if Godwin, which I think he's out for the year, and Evans don't play, they're going to prepare for that. So they're going to be ready to take that on, right? As opposed to what people are trying to say is that because Tom Brady had that one game where he scored 0 points, he didn't have weapons, that if he was in Derek Carr's situation, he would struggle even more so than Derek Carr, right? And I don't know if people are trying to imply that Derek Carr is better than Tom Brady, because it's not a comparison. Tom Brady's so much better than Derek Carr. Pocket presence, football awareness, ability to come back when down, right? Tom Brady's much better than Derek Carr. There's no question about that. But more so than that, I do agree, right? Like, you do need help at the end of the day to win. But to say Derek Carr has not had an elite offensive line would be an understatement. Derek Carr has had elite offensive lines 5 of his 8 years. Look at maybe not even his rookie year. His offensive line wasn't that good, but you can wash his rookie year out. His second year in the league, I believe, was the year they got Rodney Hudson. They may have even gotten him his rookie year. But Derek Carr's almost always had an elite offensive line. Outside of 2018, which was Colton Miller's rookie year, and this year, Derek Carr's had a great center, great guards, great tackles, pretty much his entire career. And his playmakers haven't been that bad either, right? Darren Waller and Jared Cook and Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lynch, right? So some of these guys are pretty good football players. So it's not like Derek Carr has never had weapons. He's never had a great offensive line. Either way, I think, if Tom Brady goes into next week and he scores 0 points again, I think then you can say, yeah, Tom Brady's lucky to have all these weapons and all this other stuff. But I don't think that's going to happen. And, Dak Prescott's a great example of that. Dak Prescott, before the Raiders game, went into a game. He had CeeDee Lamb, and their game plan was to get CeeDee Lamb the ball. CeeDee Lamb gets knocked out, and they end up scoring 9 points, and Dak Prescott had a terrible game. They didn't already have Amari Cooper, but then going into the following week, they knew they were not going to have CeeDee Lamb, and they knew they would not have Amari Cooper, and he still put up 33 points that next game. It's because you game plan going into that game, right? You game plan knowing what you have and what you don't have, and that makes a huge difference. By the way, I appreciate the super chat. Probably talked a little bit too much about Tom Brady. At the end of the day, I really don't care about Tom Brady. But thank you for the super chat. I do appreciate it. Let's get into some of these comments, man. I want to see what some of you guys are saying. Mark Torres said, according to James Jones, Carr wanted to quit NFL back in 2016 to focus on his Christian ministries. Laughing my ass off. I believe that's probably a rumor that's not true. Dre the Great says Tom Brady has elite quarterback IQ. Absolutely he does. Taicho says Carr runs into sacks. I think he I think he curls up at times, which is something that other players have said. But at the end of the day, not everybody's the same type of player, right? Every player has their flaws. Patrick Mahomes is very inaccurate. I know he makes these no-look throws and all this other crap, but he's a pretty inaccurate quarterback, and he oftentimes throws interceptions and sometimes they don't get caught, right? You look at Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, and they're not very good at throwing the football, right? You don't have to be a perfect quarterback in every single situation to win football games. I do think you need certain things to win football games. And I think what Derek Carr did today in terms of extending plays, not playing scared, those type of things really matter. And I think those are the differences in the game. Cool Zay said Locke runs into sacks. LOL. I believe we're talking about Drew Lock, who will likely be playing next week. Antonio, thank you for the super chat. Said Carr is a great person, just not a leader of men. We need a stronger leader to rally the troops and push the team to the next level. If you guys don't follow me on Twitter, make sure you guys follow me. I'm going to put a poll out on Twitter. I'm going to ask that question: is Derek Carr a leader of men? And we'll see, what the fans vote. And I'll reach out to some players and I'll make a midweek update on what the players say. I'll let them know that I will not obviously put their names out and stuff like that. Maybe I'll write an article about it. But regardless, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. I do kind of think that Derek Carr is not a leader of men, and that's just my personal opinion. You don't always have to agree with everybody, right? We're not going to agree at the end of the day. We're all our own people. But I do feel like Derek Carr is not the best leader of men. And that's just my personal opinion. Thank you for the super chat. Cunningham says outside wide receivers, not just any weapons. Definitely not saying Carr is better. Dak has been not good lately. Dak Prescott has been struggling a little bit. Some people talk a little bit about his health and there's some issues there. I will say this. I think Dak Prescott's a better quarterback than Derek Carr. Now, Dak Prescott does have more help at the moment, but I still think Dak Prescott, he had almost 5,000 yards just last year he was on pace at least for 5,000 yards before he got hurt. And I think it was the year before he had 5,000 yards. But Dak Prescott's a really good quarterback. And, I'll be honest, I don't think Derek Carr is all that great. I said this in the past. Some people say Derek Carr is a top 5 to 7 quarterback. I think that's way too high. I think Derek Carr is more of like, number 12 to 17, right? Somewhere in between there. And again, that's just my personal opinion. 16 points against the Cleveland Browns team that had 8 starters out. That kind of speaks for itself. You look at all the games over the past 6 weeks that we put up like 12.5 points, kind of speaks for itself. Obviously, the Chiefs game was the one game that I will give Derek Carr a pass because he didn't lose that game. But some of these other games, you can kind of put that on Derek Carr. Thank you, though, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Kinser Abakan, and I apologize if I say your name wrong because I know I do. I'm terrible with names. You said DC going to be a great trade in the future, making Vegas stronger, baby. Shout out to you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. You guys think Derek Carr eventually gets traded? If so, what is his compensation? I've heard some people say he's going to go for multiple first-round picks. I've heard some people say he'll go for at least one first-round pick. I think the Raiders get a second-round pick for Derek Carr. And that, too, like, if Derek Carr's contract's coming to an end, and especially if the Raiders go out and actually draft the quarterback this year and know that Derek Carr's not their future, his trade value plummets, and the Raiders at that point will not be able to trade Derek Carr, right? So what do you guys think his trade value is, and when do we trade him if we trade him, or do you guys think we should extend him? Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about that. Big Anti makes a great point. He says the O is still too conservative and still too many drops, and I actually agree with you. I really believe that this offensive game plan is too conservative. On that final drive that the Raiders needed to score, at least get into field goal range, 4 of Derek Carr's 6 throws were checkdowns. 4 of his 6 throws were checkdowns. This, you can't do that. And I know we still ended up getting into field goal range and we still ended up scoring. But throwing that many checkdowns, if the Browns tackled better, if they kept their guys in bounds, this game could have been a little bit different. If their guys were healthier, this game could have been a little bit different. I think we run too many plays for checkdowns. And I don't necessarily blame Derek Carr for that, at least 100%. I know Derek Carr can definitely still do some more things. I think Derek Carr should still, be able to hold on to the ball a little bit longer than he does, right? I think Derek Carr checks it down a little bit quicker. If one of the interesting things to note about this game was one of the 2 guys that was calling this game was Kurt Warner. If you guys remember, Kurt Warner on his YouTube channel earlier this offseason put out a video about Derek Carr. And he talked about how Derek Carr misses wide open guys. He talked about how Derek Carr checks it down or is making the wrong reads. Kurt Warner took a shot at Derek Carr in his video. Now, in that video, he does talk positive about Derek Carr just a little bit, but he does talk negative about Derek Carr. And what's interesting is Kurt Warner called the game today. I believe this was the first time he called a Raider game, at least for me. I watched on NFL Network. Kurt Warner called that game, and Kurt Warner talked about Derek Carr a little bit in a positive manner. And there was one point in the game where he talked a little bit about how Derek Carr missed Hunter Renfro. He missed, it was another guy that was open. I believe it was Zay Jones. He said something about, Zay Jones kind of got open and Derek Carr instead, I believe he checked it down. But it was interesting that Kurt Warner didn't point it out more, right? It almost kind of seemed like he was told not to point it out. Regardless, I see a lot of people talking about Derek Carr. A lot of people are saying Carr haters are stupid. Some people are saying DC starting to really suck. It's crazy because the fan base is so split with Derek Carr. I've had people blame me and say, you're one of the reasons why people hate Derek Carr, because you're always saying Derek Carr is not the guy. You should just support Derek Carr. The thing is I can't support someone I don't have faith in, right? It would be like me saying I have a ton of faith in Trayvon Mullen, right? Or I have a ton of faith in Solomon Thomas, when I don't. I see these guys and I don't think they're all that good, right? I think they get a little bit more overhyped than they necessarily deserve. And I almost feel like that's kind of true with Derek Carr, so I can't really support that. And, I'll remind you guys, I said this 2.5 years ago. Derek Carr has happy feet. He checks the ball down before he needs to, and he oftentimes is missing wide open wide receivers. I made a film breakdown of this 2.5 years ago, lost a lot of subscribers, got a ton of hate on social media. But I said that about Derek Carr, and I said 2.5 years ago that the Raiders need to move on from Derek Carr. Now, obviously, I've been the idiot on this, right? Because I'm the one that's always been wrong. John Gruden stuck with Derek for 2.5 years. But this is the first year that people are actually saying that Derek Carr is not the guy. Like, this is the first year, which is, for me, it's kind of crazy that people are kind of turning on Derek a little bit. But either way, right now, the Raiders are still in the playoff hunt. Derek Carr did make a statement, which is kind of interesting. He said that people are already planning his future, right? He implied, and this was right after the game, Derek Carr implied that people are already looking forward past Derek Carr, and we're still in the playoff hunt. And he definitely makes a good point. At the end of the day, it's not over. The Raiders are not out of the playoffs. But Derek Carr does have to play better. 16 points isn't good enough, right? And if you think 16 points is good enough, I don't know what to tell you, because it's not, especially with, in my opinion, an offense that's, our offense is not worse than the Baltimore Ravens offense right now. Right? You look at the Baltimore Ravens offense and you look at the Raiders offense. I don't think our offense is worse. And I believe they put up 31 points yesterday against the Green Bay Packers. Starting defense, every player is healthy. And we put up 16 against the Cleveland Browns. I believe we put up 14 against the New York Giants. We put up 9 against the Chiefs one time and 14 the other time. I believe we put up 15 points against the Washington football team, right? You got to score more points. That's not good enough at the end of the day. At the end of the day, the Raiders still won, right? We're 7-7. I believe right now we are in 9th place or 10th place, but we're 7-7. And basically, if the Raiders win next week and all the other teams that are in front of us lose, we could easily be in the 5th spot, right? Like, which is, it's kind of crazy to think, right? If you guys can hit that thumbs up button, I would really, really, really appreciate it. It really does help. I see a lot of your guys' comments about Derek Carr, about the offense, the offensive line. And let me know how you guys think about the offensive line. Did they have a good game today, or were they trash? Because I felt like the Raiders' offensive line played much better. Now, I believe they did have a couple of penalties. I think Brandon Parker had a holding call early in the game. I think Colton Miller had one holding call, and I think John Simpson had one holding call. And I think those were the 3 penalties that the offensive line had. But the Raiders did get billed out, I think, once with a pass interference on Zay Jones. Those deep 40, 50 yards, which was a pass interference. I believe it was 3rd down. And Derek Carr did a great job getting out of the pocket. He spun and, was able to get out of it, and he just chucked it deep. And good things kind of happen, man. Some people are asking who should be the Raiders quarterback if we moved on from Derek Carr. the thing is we're not going to move on from Derek Carr right now, right? We're going to go into the offseason and come up with the plan. A lot of quarterbacks could become available, right? Russell Wilson could become available. Aaron Rodgers could become available. Tom Brady could potentially become available, right? Like, what if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or Bruce Arians and Tom Brady have a fallout, and Brady says, I'm not playing here. All right, so much could happen going into the offseason. You can also draft guys, right? Like, the San Francisco 49ers had I think like the 12th or 13th pick. They traded through 3 first-round picks to go up to number 3, and they drafted a quarterback. There's no reason why the Raiders couldn't do something similar, right? It's not out of the question. You also have Marcus Mariota. Some people have talked a little bit about it, that this season is a failed season already. Regardless if the Raiders win right now, it's a failed season, and there's no reason to put Marcus Mariota into the game. Also, there was no reason to have Gus Bradley become the head coach, because had Gus Bradley became the head coach, and the Raiders were likely going to lose a ton of their next couple of weeks, if that happened, the fans wouldn't get behind Gus Bradley potentially being the coach next year. There's a high chance that Gus Bradley is our head coach next year. I know some people might not want to hear that, but how many other head coaches are there out there that the Raiders have a shot at, right? I mean, I know you can get some of these offensive coordinators that haven't necessarily been head coaches, but how do we know those guys are going to succeed as head coaches, right? Being an offensive coordinator is different than being a head coach. Some people have mentioned Joe Brady. Joe Brady just got fired as an offensive coach, right? Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys, has been struggling, right? Like the Dallas offense has not been that great this year. It's really the defense and the fact that they're forcing all those turnovers that's really winning them the game, right? A plus 12 turnover differential in the last 3 games for the Dallas Cowboys. Plus 12. That's crazy. Ty Davis said, "What up, Sanji? Insane game, heart pounding." Absolutely. When Rich Bisaccia called the timeout right before halftime, they made the first one. He called the timeout. They had to re-kick it, and then he missed the field goal, right? Their kicker. I was very excited because those are the types of things that a coach has full control over. How many times have the Raiders done something like that where they ice the kicker? At the same time, the Cleveland Browns interim coach, right? Or not interim, but the guy that was kind of taking over the head coaching duties, he was also a special teams coach. He also iced Daniel Carlson at the end of the game. And I almost thought, great, like we did it to them and now they did it to us. They're about to win. And Daniel Carlson came up clutch, man. So you got to give a big shout out to him. Big shout out to him. And Rich Bisaccia, man, he did a good job today. Although I will say this, I think there were times where we should have potentially went for it. Specifically, I think it was like 4th and 1. We ended up punting the ball instead. I almost feel like the Raiders could have potentially went for it and let's win the game, right? Let's not have the defense necessarily step up and have to win. Let's not leave it to chance. Let's go out and let's win it ourselves. Machiavelli also, Greg Olsen is very pedestrian in play calling, and Cable is terrible. Cable with Seattle was the worst line ever. Wilson ran for his life. And, some of that is true. Tom Cable did struggle a little bit with the Seattle Seahawks, but you can also kind of say the quarterback there, especially at that time, right? Russell Wilson, beginning of his career, he wasn't as good of a player as he is today. So he wouldn't necessarily throw the ball at times. And it kind of made him look a little bit worse than he was, at least in my opinion. And I think Tom Cable's still a good coach, right? I know people are killing Tom Cable. This actually happened. The same exact situation happened in 2018. Tom Cable's first year with the Raiders, think back. If you guys can remember this, Tom Cable came to the Raiders in 2018. He drafted Brandon Parker. He drafted Colton Miller. He moved Donald Penn from left tackle to right tackle. Gabe Jackson, Clutch Yosemite, Rodney Hudson. And I believe we allowed like 58 sacks that year. Like Derek Carr was sacked the most he had ever been in 2018. And people killed Tom Cable. They say Tom Cable's not a good head coach. He's not, or a good offensive line coach. He sucks. He's terrible. He's this, he's that, he's that, he's this. But a lot of people would also make the argument that Tom Cable is a top 5 offensive line coach in the league. At least coaches would make that point, right? John Gruden came to the Raiders. He could have picked a ton of different head coaches or a ton of different coaches to be his offensive line coach. But he picked a guy that was a head coach in the past. He picked a guy that was promoted to play calling duties in the past. He picked Tom Cable as his offensive line coach. In 2018, the Raiders really struggled and people wanted Tom Cable fired. In 2019, we looked way better. And in 2020, our offensive line took that next step. Now, obviously, come 2021, we lost our starting left guard and right guard pretty much before the season even started. Our right tackle that we drafted really hasn't panned out, and we had to move him from right tackle to right guard. And you can also blame that on some of the fact that if Alex Leatherwood was our starting right tackle and Denzel Good was our starting right guard, how much better would Leatherwood have been having a guy like Denzel Good next to him, right? I think heads and shoulders, there'd be a big difference. I think Tom Cable is still an okay offensive line coach. I know some people do kind of hate Tom Cable, but I still think he's okay. And let me know. I want to know what you guys think about that. Like, should the Raiders get rid of Tom Cable? Now, I will say this. You're 100% with Greg Olsen. I think the Raiders' offensive scheme is very flawed. 2 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards doesn't make sense. Just throw a pass for 9 yards, right? Derek Carr threw the ball 38 times today. Had 236 yards. That's terrible, right? That's absolutely terrible. If someone throws it 38 times, they should have 350 yards, right? Because 38 throws is a lot of throws, in my opinion. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it, as always. JT Douglas said, huge disadvantage to leave DC in the game when Mariota comes in. Stupidity, also. Game management with 3 minutes left was horrible, going deep. Why? I do agree with you on that. I don't know why the Raiders continue to keep Derek Carr in the game, because now you're not really going to throw it. You know, if you guys don't know this, the way you stop a read option is that very far guy on the outside end, you just have him stand there. And what happens is then you put everybody else right into the middle of the defense, have a guy blitz the A and B gaps, and you shut those inside runs down, and the quarterback will always hand it off as long as you keep a guy and just have him contain the outside, because that outside contain is what's being read. As the outside contain, if you shoot down, Mariota keeps the ball. If you stand up and you stand there, Mariota hands the ball off. It's very easy to know what to do and how to stop it. And there's a reason why the read option isn't working anymore. Take Derek Carr out, put a receiver there, fake the read option, and let Mariota roll out of the pocket, right? Because now on those read options, maybe you actually just run, you just hand the ball off. It keeps the defense thinking, right? As opposed to when you keep Derek Carr and you know a read option's coming. I think that's one of the reasons why Greg Olsen needs to be gone. Like, flat out, I think it's a terrible job. I do think we mismanaged this game with 3 minutes left. I really do think the Raiders did a bad job. Derek Carr said that he read a cover 4. Those are his words, not mine. And he felt that he would have been able to get the ball in and that the corner just made a good play. Either way, an interception is an interception. The Raiders kind of got lucky, in my opinion. But, with that being said, man, if you guys can hit that thumbs up button, I'd really appreciate it. I'm going to actually watch the All-22 tape. I should have it around 8 o'clock today, so I'm going to check that out. I can't post clips because of the way it's shared with me. A guy that I know works in the NFL, ESPN specifically, covers the NFL for ESPN. He gets me the tape. At least he allows me to watch it. So I'm going to watch the tape today, man. And I'm going to give you guys my thoughts and opinions on Twitter and on Instagram. Follow me on those platforms if you guys don't already follow me. Hit that thumbs up button before you guys log off. Enjoy the win, man. A win is a win. Playoff hopes are still alive. Hit that thumbs up button, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.